Have you ever had one of those days where you just feel bloated? Well, let me tell you about a guy who took that feeling to a whole new level. Meet Stephen McCormick, a truck driver from New Zealand. He's working on his truck, minding his own business, when he slips and falls. But this wasn't just any fall. He landed butt first onto a brass valve connected to the truck's compressed air brakes. The valve punctured him and started pumping air into his body at 100 pounds per square inch. His colleagues found him swelling up like a human Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade float. His skin was stretched so tight it felt like a rock. They shut off the air, but now he was just stuck like that. And to make matters worse, the local ambulances were busy. So this poor guy had to lie there, inflated and in agony, for a full hour. At the hospital, doctors were stunned. The air had separated his fat from his muscle, filled his chest, and was crushing his heart and lungs. They had to stick a tube in him just so he could breathe. And the solution to get all that air out? Well, there was no fancy medical procedure. His body's escape plan was to fart for 3 days straight. Miraculously, he made a full recovery, proving that sometimes the solution to life's biggest problems is just to let one rip. Surviving something that should have been a freak fatal accident is one thing, but what about being saved by something that's also trying to kill you? Let's talk about Joan Murray, an experienced skydiver on her 36th jump. She leaps from the plane, hurtling towards the earth at 120 miles per hour. It's time to pull the cord. Nothing happens. She tries again. Still nothing. Okay, plan B, the reserve chute. It opens. Relief. But wait, now she's spinning like a top, and her reserve parachute's cords twist into a useless ball of string. She hits the ground at 80 miles per hour. She woke up in a hospital 2 weeks later. The entire right side of her body had been crushed, but she was alive. So, how did she survive a fall that should have turned her into a pancake? Well, by sheer insane chance, she landed directly on a massive fire ant nest. The ants, furious about their new human-shaped roof, swarmed her and stung her over 200 times. Now, fire ant venom is a powerful nerve stimulant, and getting injected with 200 doses of it acted like a massive continuous shot of adrenaline, keeping her heart beating just long enough for paramedics to arrive. She was literally saved by being attacked by a swarm of angry venomous insects. Sometimes the universe's logic is just weird. Speaking of weird logic, let's talk about whales. You know, those majestic, gentle giants? Yeah, gentle until one swallows you whole. Julie and Liz were kayaking in California, watching humpback whales feed. The rule is to stay 300 feet away, but they got a little too close to the action. A massive bait ball of fish swarmed near their kayak, and a hungry whale came lunging up from below, mouth wide open. In one gulp, it swallowed the fish and the kayak, with Julie and Liz inside. Imagine that for a second. You're suddenly in the world's wettest, fishiest, darkest escape room. You'd think you're about to become whale food. But here's a fun fact. A humpback whale, despite being the size of a school bus, has a throat about the size of a human fist. It can stretch, but not enough to swallow a person. They also don't have teeth. So the whale, realizing it had just accidentally inhaled 2 very non-fishy objects, did the only logical thing. It surfaced, opened its mouth, and just spat them out. They were completely unharmed, just a little slimy and with a story nobody would ever believe. Getting spat out by a whale is a bad day on the water, but it's probably better than being on the RMS Lusitania in 1915. A young woman named Margaret Guire was on board with her new husband. They're having dinner when, bam, a German torpedo slams into the ship. Chaos erupts. Her husband gets her to a lifeboat, but as it's being lowered, Margaret looks up and sees the ship's massive smokestacks looming over them. Terrified they'll collapse on top of her, she panics and climbs back onto the sinking ship. Her husband, thinking she's safe in the lifeboat, gets on another one. The Lusitania goes down fast, creating a massive whirlpool. Margaret is sucked under, pulled right into one of those giant smokestacks she was so afraid of. Yes, you heard that right. She became a human chimney sweep the hard way. This should be the end. But then, a boiler deep inside the ship explodes, and the blast shoots her right back out of the smokestack and onto the surface, like a cork from a champagne bottle. She's rescued by a nearby lifeboat, and as she looks around, she sees her husband in another boat, weeping because he thought she was gone. Talk about a dramatic reunion. From the sea to the factory floor, our next survivor is Matthew Lowe. He was at work, walking past a conveyor belt, when his overalls got snagged. Before he could even blink, he was pulled onto the belt and dragged towards a 5-inch opening. 5 inches! That's smaller than a coffee mug. The machine forced his entire body through that gap. He said he could hear his own bones cracking as he was squeezed through and spat out the other side. His back was broken, his pelvis and ribs were crushed, and he was somehow still conscious. Doctors told his family to prepare for the worst, but Matthew, against all odds, survived. After 6 surgeries and 18 months of recovery, he went back to work. But if you think that's an insane story of survival, let me introduce you to the undisputed world champion of cheating death. His name is Frane Selak, a music teacher from Croatia. This man is the living embodiment of the movie Final Destination, except he always wins. In 1962, the train he was on derailed and plunged into a frozen river. He swam to shore with a broken arm while 17 others died. 1 year later, he was on a plane when both engines failed. A faulty door blew open and he was sucked out of the plane at thousands of feet without a parachute. The plane crashed, killing everyone on board. Frane? He landed on a haystack. A haystack! 2 years after that, the bus he was on skidded off an icy bridge into a valley. 4 people died. Frane swam to safety, again. At this point, he decided public transport was trying to kill him, so he bought a car. Bad idea. In 1970, his engine caught fire. He jumped out seconds before it exploded. 3 years later, his new car's fuel pump failed, spraying engine fire at him through the air vents. He was burned, but survived. In 1975, he was hit by a bus. He survived. Then, in 1996, a truck forced him off a mountain road. His car plunged 300 feet off a cliff. As it was falling, Frane jumped out the window, landed in a tree, and watched his car explode at the bottom of the ravine. It's like the universe was playing a cosmic game of pinball, and he was the ball. After surviving 7 different disasters that should have killed him, fate finally decided to give him a break. In 2003, Frane Selak bought a lottery ticket for the first time in 40 years. And he won, nearly $1 million. So whether you're inflated by a truck, saved by fire ants, or swallowed by a whale, it just goes to show that sometimes life is stranger, funnier, and a whole lot luckier than we could ever imagine. If you enjoyed hearing about people who should be dead but aren't, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which one of these stories absolutely blew your mind.